Welcome and thank you for coming. My name is Sarah Marks. I'm a registered nurse. I go to Davis Elkins College. I'm also a student. I'm going for my bachelor degree in nursing. And for one of my classes, I had to do a research proposal. And I chose to do mine on substance abuse. What interested me is, are we trading one addiction for another? Okay, I want to give you all a scenario here. How many of you drink coffee? How many of you smoke cigarettes? How many drink caffeine? Yeah. So, those are all stimulants. Those are all things you can get addicted to. And what happens when you don't have that morning cup of coffee or caffeine or cigarette? The psychological and the physical symptoms are real. You know, you freak out, you get anxiety, your heart starts beating, you start sweating. That's called withdrawal. You're having withdrawal symptoms. People could be addicted to something and not even know it. There are things like anything that you can be addicted to are things like an extreme exercise program. That's addictive. Religion, you see the religious fanatics, that's an addiction. Alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, even over-the-counter drugs. People can get addicted to over-the-counter drugs. If you go to the doctor and get help with your addiction, then what they do is they usually put you on a replacement drug. Has anyone ever tried to quit smoking? Yeah. First thing they do is put you on Wellbutrin. Try to put you on Chantix. You hear those things on TV all the time. It's the same thing for people with substance abuse. They go to the doctor, they admit they have a problem, and then they're put on medications. That replacement medication, though, that is supposed to be aimed at helping you, actually becomes your new addiction. And a lot of times it's more addictive taking that medication. Since the drug methadone hit the market in 2003, it has been the primary suspect in 420 deaths in the United States. And these are people that were on the medication. These aren't people that got it illegally off the street or the black market. This medication is diverted and sold on the black market. The potential for abuse and overdose can make this drug even more dangerous than the original drug of choice. Generally, when you hear the words methadone or Suboxone, you think of a heroin user. That's not necessarily true. These people could be hooked on Lortabs or Norco, something you get from the dentist for a dental problem, something that simple. The potential for abuse and overdose makes this drug misused. Methadone is misused and leads to medically adverse effects, including death. One of the problems we had is methadone started getting really popular, and then all of a sudden they were like, uh-oh, it's starting to have adverse effects. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out with another drug to replace it. The replacement drug was Suboxone. Everybody's heard about Suboxone. You hear about them on the street all the time. Suboxone, a newer drug used to treat addiction, was believed to be a safer alternative. With the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, poised to bring in more addicts for treatment, the high hopes have been tempered with a messy reality. The medication has become both medication and dope, a treatment with considerable success and failures. The deaths associated with Suboxone misuse are underreported because what's happening is they're not even testing for it. People are dying and they're not being tested for Suboxone. So we have no idea how many people are really dying from this drug. All right, the problem statement. Addiction is an underlying problem for a lot of Americans. 23 million Americans suffer from alcohol and drug addictions. The high stress lives and rising economy make it difficult for people to cope. And one of the coping mechanisms is to rely on drugs or alcohol. One parent used to be able to stay at home and raise the children. Now more often than not, it takes both parents' income to make ends meet. Statement of the problem, or problem statement. It's really easy for teenagers to become addicted to drugs because of social media, boredom, and lack of confidence. Teenagers and the elderly are two major groups of people with rising death rates due to addiction and suicide. This study will investigate the gaps in the treatment of addiction and unveil the underlying causes. The study will be beneficial to all age groups. The purpose of this study is to investigate whether or not we are treating the problem of addiction or making it worse. To find out if current treatment options are working or if there's other alternatives. To possibly discover new coping mechanisms for the general public. To find out if this problem is only going to escalate or if there's an end in sight. A few key terms. Methadone, also known as Dolafine, a synthetic opioid. It is used medically as pain medication and maintenance therapy with opioid dependence. And then Suboxone, buprenorphine, is a semi-synthetic opioid derivative of, it's called Fidane. It is a mixed partial agonist opioid receptor modulator that is used to treat opioid addiction in higher dosages to control moderate acute pain in non-opioid tolerant individuals in lower dosages and to control moderate chronic pain in even lower dosages. So just because you see someone on it, it doesn't mean that they were addicted. It just means that that's what they're being treated for their pain for. And they can't use things like Lortabs and the other opioids. Addiction is a state characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli, despite adverse consequences. So it's anything that makes you feel good, despite what you're doing to your body. Or qualitative research software. Examples are Reframer and Atlas TI. This is a program that helps people like me who are going to do this research manage, shape, and make sense of unstructured information. The gap in the research. Okay, I did a literature review if you'd like to see it. What I did was I went through article after article after article, and what I was looking for the answers to my questions, and this is what I didn't find. Most of the research deals with recovering addicts and follow-up programs, but the research does not cover any questions about the effects of medications are having on the addicted individuals. There are no long-term effects being studied. There's no study being done that shows how addictive these medications are and how they are affecting the public when they're being sold on the street. The deaths from these medications are not under review either. So that's the gap. I mean, I have lots of articles. If you'd like to see them, you can see me afterwards. A qualitative study. Qualitative research is a naturalistic approach to research in which the focus is on understanding the meaning of an experience from the individual's perspective. The researcher will interview participating individuals and use a questionnaire to conduct research. The questions used would focus on people with previous addictions and current addicts. I'd like to take people that just now are going into rehab and ones that have been there. I'd like to have both groups of people. Example questions would be yes or no, answers would be yes or no, and would be open-ended. And here's some examples of the questions asked on my questionnaire. Has your physician talked to you about stopping the medication or taking drug holidays? Did anyone inform you of the side effects of the medication? Are you having trouble affording or obtaining the medication? How long have you taken the medication? Any side effects? How long are you required to take the medication? I mean, has anyone even told you how long you'd be taking it? In your opinion, is the medication helpful? Those are just a few sample questions. The research is going to, the interview and stuff would take approximately an hour or 35 to 45 minutes, so there's going to be a lot more questions to that. Research type justification. Qualitative methods focus on understanding the meaning of an experience from the individual's perspective. So the difference is quantitative. Quantitative is when you can measure something,
Right.
blood pressure, pulse. Those are measurable outcomes. Qualitative is not. It's not something you can actually measure. It is a person's perception, which makes it actually quite difficult to try and do a survey with. Extended observation of participants, in-depth interviews or focus groups, case studies, and studies of social interaction are examples of qualitative methods. Qualitative methods are appropriate for addressing questions in which the meaning of the patient's experience is central to understanding the best therapeutic approach. Issues of behavior change, motivation, compliance with the regimen, and tolerance of a treatment are all examples of topics in which the patient's perception is central to assisting the patient to a healthy state. The inquiry process focuses on verbal descriptions and observable behaviors as a basis for analysis and conclusion. The analysis of themes that describe the meaning of the experience for the patient is based on words and observations rather than measurable phenomena. The research establishes a relationship with the subject, and bias is considered an inherent part of the research process. The findings from qualitative studies are used to enhance evidence-based practice by incorporating the patient's preferences and values into guides for nursing practice. All right, a sampling procedure. Basically what I have to do is I have to get a sample size, like a population that I'm going to be doing this on, and then a sample size from that population. So the population size for this proposed research study will be addicts in the first phase of rehab that are currently still addicted to their drug of choice, which would be brand new people walking through the door for the first time, and previous addicts being treated with Suboxone or Methadone. The study results would be useful for the patients that are starting rehabilitation. The sample size for this study will be the currently addicted and the previously addicted volunteers. This research study will need at least 20 volunteer participants. And that number is not a magic number. That's basically the smallest number you can get for a qualitative study. You can use small numbers to get what you need. 10 participants from the currently addicted group and 10 participants from the previously addicted group. The number of participants depends upon the methodology you are using. Typically, qualitative methods require fewer participants. This is because you are collecting qualitative data, which is rich in meaning and complex in nature. Rehab clinics or Suboxone clinics is where, obviously, that would be your first choice to get your volunteers. And of course, you would ask them to participate in the study. The phase 1 addicts or current addicts will be given information on the study during their first visit and be given a choice not to participate. If they don't choose not to, they would be automatically into it. The previously addicted patients will be asked during their next visit to the clinic whether or not they would like to participate in the study. If they said yes, an informed consent would be obtained before any participation in the study can begin. The reason being is the data collected we want to share it. Once we get the research and the results, we want to be able to share it. To do that, you have to have an informed consent. No information about the person would be shared. We just need their consent to share the answers they gave us. Data collection details and instrument overview. Alright, so what am I going to do to collect this data? And how am I going to analyze this data? Individual interviews and the researcher are qualitative data collection tools. The type of data collection that is used in a qualitative research study is dependent on the types of qualitative methodology you are undertaking, as well as which data collection method will be best help you answer your research question or questions. Flexibility is very important in data collection for qualitative research study because the research study is continually evolving as a result of the data that have already been collected. Questioning and observation will therefore be informed by the theory as it emerges. The researcher will use an audio recorder and take notes, like a journal, during the interview. The observation notes and the verbal replies to the questionnaire during the interview will be entered into a qualitative research software program for analysis. The program I've chosen would be Atlas, TI. It is a professional analysis software which gives the researcher several tools and functions to easily work with all forms of unsorted data, such as interviews, audio, or video data. The software actually enables the researcher to identify similarities, themes, and develop meaningful conclusions. It doesn't hinder you in any way, it actually just, helps you. It doesn't do anything with the data except give you similarities and themes. And of course, I would be the one putting the data in. The current addicts will need to complete an interview before the first rehabilitation appointment and one after they start on a specific regimen. Each interview for these individuals should be no more than 30 to 45 minutes. This will ensure their participation. If you make it too long, they're not going to want to participate. The previously addicted individuals or patients already in the treatment program, I would like to spend about an hour with them, because it's only going to be a one-time shot. So instead of 2 times for them, I would like to have 1 time for the previously addicted. No names or other personal identifying information will be used in the study to protect the patients. The researcher will obtain informed consent before the interviews are conducted. The researcher will conduct the individual interviews in a private room with no windows. That way nobody can see who's in there, nobody can see what's going on. The only objects in the room will be a table, 2 chairs set up facing each other, a pen and notepad for the researcher, an audio recorder, an extra tape, some extra batteries. Data analysis consists of examining, categorizing, tabulating, and recombining the evidence obtained from the research. All this is concerned with the organization and interpretation of information in order to discover any important underlying patterns and trends. Once the interviews are concluded, they will have to be examined for common ideas, concepts, terms, phrases, and keywords. Coding is the process of going through the data with a fine-tooth comb, looking for themes, ideas, and categories, and then noting similar parts of the text and giving them a code label. Data that we code usually arise from sections of text that have transcribed from interviews. So this is the part where I took my notes, and I would enter those in, and those would be coded and labeled. We'd be looking for similarities in that. They may also be excerpts from diaries, audio or video recordings, or even images. The aim of analyzing qualitative data is to examine the meaningful and symbolic content of people's groups' experiences and of events that occur in their lives, cultural, social, psychological, and individual. The results can be generalized to the greater population because they are confined to a specific group of people. The data collection tool is reliable for a qualitative study. The researcher is getting the information from the source of the data is reliable as long as the person is truthful. The person, as long as when you're talking you are truthful, then it's reliable data. Do you have any questions, concerns, comments? Thanks for coming.